about qigong. And I practice saying that because the people who are English speaking cannot use qigong the way that they say it. I've heard about qigong, and I came across this article that talked about how it was saving this person's life who was an addict and he was trying to move away. But then it sent me on a little rabbit hole to try to understand what qigong is. It's a combination of movement and breathing. It may seem a little bit like Tai Chi, but it's a little simpler. And there are so many studies going out about it. It has been proven to help with addiction and with depression. And I think that it's something that we should all kind of start talking about because it's such a beautiful, easily followed art form.
Yeah, where I heard about this actually was chiropractors were starting to use this for clients who were suffering from physical conditions, but then they felt that they had some sort of like processing or emotional issues going on that
Mm-hmm.
they could not get through, right? They were like stuck in these emotional issues and they were applying qigong to that. And it's very, very interesting. And I think the study of this has gone on for quite some time now. And I'd love to
Yes,
talk about this article. I guess The Guardian was our favorite go-to this weekend
there's good stuff there.
in reading. But so I wanted to get just a shout out to the people who wrote the article. It was Emilio Linero who wrote this, and it's a massive spiritual shift. How the mindfulness movement of qigong can help treat addiction. See, I say qigong, but it's qigong can help treat addiction. So it's definitely a great article. What was the shocking thing about this for you? Did you know a lot about qigong, Kristina, before you read this?
No, I had heard it with some of the recovery programs and some of the recovery professionals that I, network with, and I had heard that it was very, very effective. And I think what was interesting about Emilio's article was that he was searching for this. He was sober. He was searching for a way to have peace in sobriety and had actually already, was hanging out with monks and still suffering. And he happened to sign up for a workshop. And in one session, he said he had a huge spiritual shift, just one session. And I thought, wow, here's somebody who's really searching for some truth, from peace. And what we know about the nervous system is until we can settle the nervous system down, we can't really get to a solution for the problem.
Yeah, I've heard of this, especially for people who have been stuck in addiction, that they just are really being tortured, right? And they have tried
Mm-hmm.
everything, but just feel that the process is going very slow or slower than their fellows, right? And they've tried this and had massive shifts. One of the things that I've heard about qigong, and I'd love to talk with you about this because is about the ability for it to bring you to acceptance. That
Yes.
this is a big thing. It's not necessarily that like, and because we want to be upfront here. I don't believe that you're going to go in to a session of qigong as an alcoholic and come out not an alcoholic. Like that's not
Right.
what we're saying, right? But it does seem to have this gateway, a path to be able to have a little bit more of internal acceptance
Right.
about what is going on with you and the ability to just be able to realize it's like, all right, this is what's up. I would almost use the word clarity in that.
That's a good word. That's a really good word. I know when I first got sober, I was looking for peace. That was something that I really, really was searching for. I was so tired. And in my recovery program, I have to include movement. And I think what's nice about Qigong is that you can follow it, you can find instructions on, the internet. You can do it no matter what your physical capability is, and it's accumulative. And that means, you will use these movements in a moment when you are stressed out, but you can come to a place where you use them proactively. And I love the idea. I mean, one of my problems was not actually being in my body. I was so disassociated.
Yeah, I love that. The connection of your mind,
Mhm.
body, spirit. You know, we talk a lot about one of the things I think in 12 step groups that is misunderstood and not elaborated on enough about. And I think it's just the context in which it's written. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. Is this whole idea of meditation. You know,
Mhm.
meditation is talked a lot about in the big book. It's talked a lot about in all different kind of forms of 12 step. And,
Mhm.
you know, I think back when they wrote that, their idea and information about meditation was very limited, but they even highlighted the importance of being able to just stop and to be
Mhm.
able to sit in quiet and reflect and let things come to you, as
Right.
opposed to fighting in the ring all the time to try to get breakthroughs.
Well, and some of us, you'll have to tell me if you were a good meditator. Some of us really struggled with that in the beginning. I mean, there are still days where I struggle with sitting. I set my alarm and I can literally feel the anxiety of sitting still. And so the idea that I could do some movements and still have that mindfulness seems like a little softer, easier way to meditation. How did you
Oh,
meditate when you
what
first
do
got
you think,
here?
Kristen? Do you think that I have a hard time sitting still? Come on. Yes. Anybody who knows me knows that I have a hard time sitting still. Although I will tell you, like, I know that this is going to be, I don't recommend this. Okay. I do
Okay.
not recommend this, but how I really I had tried formal meditation. I tried all these different kind of things. Right. And I'm a very fast thinker. Like anybody
Yes.
out there that's listening to this on the live, if you want to put a comment on, I'd love to hear what you have to say about it, because my brain goes and goes and goes. So the first step with me, and the first step always with me, has been, how do I kind of reduce my thinking and just be?
Right.
And at first, I know this is just sounds so unhealthy, but at first, how I really got into just being able to sit for an hour was smoking cigars with friends, just being able
Oh,
to sit down for an hour. And I would do that. Like I met some friends, and every couple weeks we would go and we'd have a cigar, and I would sit there. And I remember after doing that, I would say, hey, you know what? That was interesting. They were all in recovery, by the way. And I
right.
felt that I just sat there for a period of time and I was really into the conversation. So then that's when I just took it to, like, hey, maybe I could just sit in my backyard. So for me, I've really evolved my meditation. Maybe I could do 10 or 15 minutes of meditation. But what
Mhm.
I am able to do now is I'm able to get to a place to neutrality where I'm not obsessively thinking and just
Right.
sitting and being. And
Well,
for me, that's huge. That for me, that was a very big breakthrough.
and it has, I mean, it has a serious, physical, benefits. It actually meditation actually overrides your BNDF, which is your default mode. It overrides it and allows us, as we continue to proactively meditate, to get to a place where we don't have a physical reaction when stress happens. We don't have that physiological response, that nervous system that is in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and actually get more online with our prefrontal cortex. And so it's come a long way, and we have a lot of studies out there showing it. But I think this is something that everybody can do. I respect the fact that sometimes we can't sit still when we first get into recovery, because that still happens to me. But I love the idea, and I'm going to grab some of the exercises of doing something with movement, because that will allow us to be mindful. And I think that's a lot easier target than, sitting down and not having thoughts.
Well, I think we need to get a qigong expert onto the show
Yes.
to
Yes.
talk about really the benefits of this, because I think it's a look, I think it's huge. I mean, I think rehabs get a lot of flack
Yes.
for high priced alternative therapies like equine therapy or things like that. But I do have to say that they have been the breakthrough in a
Right.
lot of things of trying new things, right? Like nutrition is one of them. Like I know a lot of the
Yes.
rehabs started really heavy on nutrition because they're seeing people in the throes of it 24/7, 365. So it's like, I'm all for it. Like for me, whatever works, right? Like, but
Right.
I don't think you also need qigong to really be able to start to practice mindfulness and meditation either. It's like I think for me, what this has been is little bites at the apple. It hasn't been
Yes.
one big bite. Like
Right.
Reiki, like I'm a huge, like I think we talked about this too. I've had amazing responses from Reiki.
Yes.
Like, I really have. I've had huge breakthroughs from doing Reiki, and I have friends that laugh. They're like, "This is crazy." Like, I don't know. I just sat there for a while. Nothing
Mhm.
happened, you know, and
Oh,
I respect that too. But
sure.
for me, I've had several Reiki sessions where I've had major breakthroughs.
Oh, I love Reiki. I do it weekly, along with some movement to help, uh, let go of things that I don't know how to let go of. We store so much in our body. If you've ever read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, it is a massive book about scientific research showing. And since addicts are generally drinking over their trauma, not connecting to it. When we first get sober, it is we need all of these tools in our belt. We need every single one of them, and I know that that is what I needed, and that's what has allowed me to stay for as long as I have. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
live in my body. I didn't know how to handle things, and so the more I'm able to pick up different tools, the better.
Well, I think that, as they say, more will be revealed. And I think one of
Mhm.
the things that's interesting is that we don't know what we don't know. And, I
Right.
say that a lot. We don't know what we don't know. And one of the things that has been, I think, one of the biggest breakthroughs, and you just mentioned it, one of the biggest breakthroughs in recovery, I would say since the 30s, the 20s or 30s,
Mhm.
has been this idea that there are trauma patterns within us,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And that I think it's no coincidence now that they have identified that people who are in recovery, people who are trying to get into recovery that are suffering from active addiction, seem on the whole to be a victim to these much more than the
Yes.
average bear, right? Like, so we
Right.
know that. Like, we just know this from being able to open our eyes and being around people, right? So the
Right.
question is like, okay, what's going to help that trauma? What's going to heal those trauma patterns? And we've had Stacey Danford on the show. You do a
Mhm.
whole room on recovered life discussions on Tuesday where you talk about the brain. We know that these neural patterns are going on. This is a fact now, right? That we didn't know. We assumed in the 20s and 30s that this was happening. Not that I was there in the 20s and 30s. I don't
You're
want to
not that
date
old.
myself. Christina and I were not there in the 20s, even though the
No.
20 somethings that listen to the show, we were not there in the 20s and 30s.
No, no, no.
But we do know that these are happening. And so I think anything that's going to build on that idea,
Mhm.
right? Of okay, well, how do you get out of trauma? How do you identify that you might be having a trauma response? We did this whole thing about character defects on the Recover Life show. Is it a character defect or is it a trauma response? I believe it could be both, right? I believe that
Right.
there are character defects and there are trauma responses, right? So it's interesting. I think there's room in the recovery market for new alternative things as long as it gets you closer to where you want to be and
So
further from
true.
a drink.
Yes, yes, and if we could do a few exercises to help calm our nervous system down, I mean, what is the negative of that? There is no negative, and so I love that they are pairing all of this in recovery programs and rehab facilitations, and they are actually having scientific studies on this, and so we know that, when we get into recovery, it's body, mind, and soul, and I believe that this is actually, touching the soul part.
Absolutely. This is the funny thing about this is that I think that so much of this just gets a bad rap. And I think and
Right.
I'll tell you why, because alcoholics and people who suffer from addiction, codependence, everything, we're way black and white thinkers. It's
Yes.
all or nothing. And I think, and I've seen this with, a friend and I were talking about this, that we've had friends that get into recovery and we see it, right? Maybe we have more time than they do. And what happens, they come in and they've lived the most unhealthy lifestyle, right?
Right.
And then they decide that they're going to be gym rats, and that's all they're
Yes.
going to do. And everything about their life is that the gym is going to solve every problem that they have, right? And you see the heartbreak at the end of that when they
Right.
realize it was like, well, you know what? No, I'm going to have to actually go to therapy, or I'm going to have to work on these personal relationships. It's not all going to be about my personal health or how much I can lift, right? So we get very addicted to these. Well, I'm going to use the word fad. I don't think qigong is a fad, but we get addicted to these fads that we say this is going to save us. And I think that too is addiction, right? That
Yes.
too is addiction.
And distraction. And I don't think that if you want long-term recovery, that you can ever skip doing the work. Trauma gets stored in the body, but we also need to change our belief patterns, and we need to change our belief systems. And that means deep down inside work. But it's the key. It's actually the key to give us what we want. It's just hard.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.